And we are very pleased to have with us today Waukesha Dixon and Melissa Prentice, both from Bay Area Turning Point, who is going to talk to us about the intersection of trauma and leadership. And I'm just going to turn it over to them.
Great. Thank you so much. So today we are going to be talking about the intersections of trauma and leadership. A lot of people have experienced trauma in their lives, and a lot of times that's going to shape how they lead others. And so we're going to explore what that looks like today. So to get started, if I can get my to change, we're just going to introduce ourselves and hang on so I can go back. Waukesha, I'll let you go. Is that?
Waukesha, you are muted.
Is it still blurry for y'all?
All right. Good morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Waukesha Dixon. I am the Deputy Director at Bay Area Turning Point. Just a little bit about myself. I have been doing work in the movement for going on 12 years now. Within doing that, I have grown, I tell people, both personally and professionally, right? Doing leadership and being in leadership is my passion. I started off as a young leader, and so a lot of the things that I know have been from learned experience, slaps on the hands of let's not do that again, but also recognizing that as a leader, some of the things I came to the table with might have been a cause of my own slap on the hands, my own let's not do that again. And so it's been my mission not just to be a support and an advocate for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, but also to be an advocate for those who are aspiring to be leaders, those who are in leadership positions. Yes, I come with the technical background. I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology with a minor in criminal justice, as well as a master's in business administration with an emphasis in human resource management. I also have my own leadership and consulting business, the Motivating, Empowering, and Inspiring Project, where I do leadership coaching and development. And so it's my heart, it's my passion, it's hopefully my wisdom, my experience can help someone not encounter the same things that I may have encountered, but also in this work of working with survivors. It takes a special type of mindset, a special type of leadership way. And so today, Melissa and I just want to invite you to an interactive conversation as we dive into, if you're not a leader, how do you work on what it is that you need to work through to become the great leader that you so aspire to be, as well as if you are a leader, how do you navigate through some of the baggage we may be bringing to the table that's ineffective and isn't working for a conducive, healthy working environment for those who were responsible for leading. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to introduce herself.
Okay, so my name is Melissa Prentice. I'm the Outreach Education and Prevention Director at Bay Area Turning Point. We are a domestic violence sexual assault organization outside of Houston in the Webster area. Kind of like Waukesha was saying, we all typically have some of our own traumas, our own baggage that we are bringing to the table, but that also helps shape our leadership styles. Myself, I am very open about the fact that I am a sexual assault and domestic violence survivor. And I believe that that has really shaped my experience and has really helped me kind of get into leadership opportunities. Back whenever I first started, whenever I graduated college, I didn't really see myself as a leader. It wasn't until really I started coming out about survivorship and really started voicing my opinion about things and trying to make change that I realized, yes, I am a leader. And so really, I've just been building upon that since since I really started talking about it. I do also hold a bachelor's degree in legal studies. And so I kind of have that background. I am currently on TASA's Survivor Advisory Board, and I'm also on the Office of the Governor's Sexual Assault Survivor Task Force Survivor Center Working Group. I am the former chairperson. I was chairperson, I believe, from 2021 to 2023. So that's a little bit about me. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So some of the things we're going to be talking about today, we are going to explore some of the intersections of our life experiences and traumas with a focus on overcoming that trauma and crisis. So it doesn't even have to be survivorship of domestic violence or sexual violence. It can be any kind of trauma. Have you ever lost a loved one? Have you ever been in a car accident? Have you been in a natural disaster? These are all traumas that can really shape our personalities, our leadership styles. We're also going to be talking about ways to overcome trauma and crisis that will assist in having a unique approach to being a leader in the movement and identifying qualities of leaders, which we're going to dive into here in a second. And then we want you to walk away today with your own unique leadership style. So we're going to be talking about different leadership styles, but most people are not just one style. Most people, you can be almost everything of one style, but then you look at the others and you're like, well, I'm a little bit of that. I'm a little bit of that too. And then you incorporate that, you do that trauma integration, which we'll talk about, and you really start to pick from different pieces how that shapes your leadership style. So we're going to pull from personal traumas, from life experiences, from strengths, and from leadership qualities. All right, so what is leadership? This is the art of guiding, inspiring, and influencing individuals or groups toward achieving a common goal or vision. So a lot of us, whenever we get into this movement, we are getting into this movement for a reason. We all have some form of attachment to this cause. And it's really important to understand what that attachment is. Why are we so passionate about this cause? And then we take that, we take our values and we build upon that. So what I want y'all to do, I am going to log into Mentimeter, and I'm going to ask everybody to go ahead and log in as well. And I'm going to pull our thing up here, if it feels like pulling up for me. Okay. Okay, if everybody could scan the QR code and just tell me what some characteristics that you think, tell me what some characteristics are that you think of whenever you think of leadership. Are people able to get to it? It's too blurry. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. This is internet. Okay, yeah, we can, if y'all can't see the QR code, we can just put them in the chat here. So somebody said good communication. I'm just gonna log out of the Menti. I don't think that's gonna work for me today. Open door policy, that's a good one. Empowerment. Oh, that's because I have the chat pulled up. Can you tell me what that is? All right, yeah, y'all take a couple of minutes and just think about the term leader and what pops into your mind whenever you hear that term. Sorry, I may see a little thing there. Being a great example. Yeah, these are great. Right. Mentoring, that's a good one. Sharing wisdom, hearing your employees out and respecting and hearing their insight and ideas, honest communication, ongoing feedback, being a great example. Leaders raise up more leaders. Yes, I like that. Reliability and trust, support, integrity, reliability, creating a collaborative and connected team, open mind to different ideas for success, respectful. Yes, yes, all of that stuff. Something else we have, and somebody may have said this, hang on, before I say that. Another thing is adaptability, because we know in this movement, we are going through constant change. Constant change. And so we have to be able to be adaptable to that change. And something else to kind of go with that is learning agility. And what that means is we're going to figure out what to do, even if we don't know exactly what it is we're supposed to do. We're going to figure it out. So yeah, these are great. Some other ones, let's see, learning individual strengths of the team. Yes, yes. Leaders also they're innovative, right? We have vision. We're trying to create a big picture that ties everything together that we all do. So yes, those are excellent. Thank you guys. So I want y'all to keep those in mind as we're going through this presentation. Oops, sorry, went backwards. All right, so anybody can be a leader. I know a lot of people are talking about, we have to respect our employees. We have to be a good example for our employees. But does being a leader necessarily mean you have to be in a management role, a role of authority? And I put this quote down here because this is an excellent book that I read a while back, and I encourage everybody to read it if you have a chance. It's called The Leader Who Had No Title. It's by Robin Sharma. And basically what this book is, he kind of creates little stories to teach a lesson. And what he does is he has somebody who's kind of struggling in life, ends up going to this bookstore and ends up talking with one of the workers there, who starts coaching him and mentoring him on leadership. And then he brings him to several people throughout the city that have what some people might consider menial jobs. I think one is housekeeping, one's a janitor. But all of these people are considered leaders, even though they're not managers, they're not supervisors. They are all leaders. They all inspire. They all touch people somehow. They touch everybody's lives that they work with. And they each teach this boy a different lesson as he's kind of struggling through things. And then he ends up becoming a leader himself. So I pulled this quote from that book. It's no longer an excuse to say you don't have a high rank, so you don't need to take ownership for the results of the organization. To succeed, everyone now must see themselves as part of the leadership team. You don't just need formal authority to lead anymore, only a desire to be involved and the commitment to making a positive difference. So I want y'all to remember this. It doesn't matter what your title is. And to kind of explain this a little bit further about how anybody can be a leader, we have a video from Simon Sinek. He is an inspirational, motivational speaker on business leadership. And I think he explains this excellent.
You can send new client intake forms in a single email. Alma includes templated forms and questionnaires.
Leadership is perhaps one of the most misunderstood subjects in business. Leadership has nothing to do with rank. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of an organization who are not leaders. We do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we do not trust them and we do not follow them. I also know people at low levels of organizations that have no formal authority, but they've made a choice. The choice to look after the person to the left of them, the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. Leadership is the awesome responsibility to see those around us rise. Every one of us, can choose to be the leader we wish we had. We lead our teams and we can lead our clients when we decide that we will do everything in our power to see them rise, to see them achieve their ambitions and their dreams. And this is what servant leadership means. I serve your dream rather than you serve my bottom line. And it's totally fine to have financial goals. It's totally fine to have metrics, because that becomes the proof of value that somebody wants to give you their money because they believe in you. It is proof positive. But the best leaders I know are students of leadership. There's no such thing as an expert leader. It doesn't exist. Like there's no such thing as an expert parent. It doesn't exist. Right? We are students of leadership. And even the most senior leaders constantly are reading books, reading articles, watching talks, having conversations all the time about leadership. They're always in learning mode. And I think for anyone who wants to be a leader, you have to choose to be a student of the subject. Like anything, if you want to be good at something, you have to study it. And the most ignored characteristic of leadership, we talk about vision and charisma. Yes, these are important. But I've known some wonderful leaders who don't have huge world-changing vision. I've known some wonderful leaders that are quiet and sit in the corner, but they all have courage. The courage to advance a vision, the courage to ignore the short-term ups and downs of the business, the courage to take risks on people, the courage to believe in people, the courage to speak truth to power, the courage to do the right thing and have integrity. I think courage is a very undervalued characteristic of leadership.
All right, so before we jump into the types of leadership, I just kind of want to talk a little bit through the video and bring it to some true reality when it comes to the position of leadership. I loved how he said that there are some who are in higher position, right? They have a title, but nobody listens to anything. You may want to take the chat down. No one listens to what they say. They probably really don't have any followers. And then you have some of those people in the organization who don't have a title, who everyone probably does listen to, who everyone probably tries to model their behavior behind. And I think the important thing here is what Melissa noted before, is that leadership does not revolve around a title. Leadership revolves around what you bring to the table, how you're able to gather a team to get a common goal completed. I want to bring it to a true reality, and this is something in leadership that I always sometimes struggle with, something by the name of funders, right? So when he was talking about, yes, people, want to give you money and they want to know where their dollars are. Sometimes our funders, those who fund us, they have a bottom line, right? Like, what's the numbers? How much are you spending, right? Those who are in leadership, who are doing budgets and reports and all of that, you understand what I'm saying, because it's that bottom line that they're interested in. However, who helps us get the bottom line? The people, the staff. They help us get the bottom line. So in leadership, sometimes we have to figure out the balance of, how do I still do what's needed for the funders, but also how do I still support the staff who I need to help make sure that I'm able to get what the funders need. I always, I've heard this a time before, that people work for people. And so how you treat the people who work for you is going to matter at the end of the day. You're not going to always meet your bottom line. And I don't know about if there are leaders on this Zoom that have had that time where you didn't meet your targets or anything. However, you still needed your staff to serve the clients. And as leaders, we are here to serve those. We are here to serve the staff. So that's the balance that we have to come upon. And so I encourage you as a leader, if you're trying to get into leadership, or if you're already there, have you identified your balance? Have you identified, how do I still make the funders happy, but how do I still support the staff to make sure that I can keep the doors open, that I can still keep the money coming in to be able to support survivors and be able to create programs, because they do go hand in hand. One can't work without the other, right? So I hope you guys learned something from that video, took something from it. But the key thing is the balance. How do I get the balance? So let's dive into types of leadership. So on this piece of the presentation, we're going to talk about types of leadership, but refer back to what Melissa said. You're going to probably pull something from some different types to determine what your type is. But these are just some kind of common ones that I've been able to identify that I may have fallen into, but also that I've identified other leaders may have fallen into as well. So the first one is going to be transformational leadership style. So here on each one of these, we're going to talk about the characteristics, why it works, and even the challenges in that leadership style. So the first characteristics is mutual respect for the team, encouraging, creative, they see the big picture, the goal of lasting positive impact, and they understand the organizational need. So when you think of transformational, the root word is transformation, right? And so you want to transform something, right? So what that means is that you, like it said, it's mutual respect for the team. If I'm trying to transform something into something greater, better, I have to have respect for those who are at the team for me. You can't be a know-it-all in transformational leadership. So if you try to be a know-it-all, that's probably not your leadership style. If you're not open, if you're not welcoming the respect and the thoughts and opinions from those within your team, more than likely you may be thinking, I'm a transformative leader. But if you aren't identifying with some of these characteristics, I'm going to challenge you to go back to the table and evaluate that. So why does transformational leadership work in the space, right? So it boosts employee satisfaction and morale. And I like to think one of the reasons that it does that is the mutual respect. We all come to the work to be respected, right? We all come with a different level of experience, a different level of education, a different level of awareness and knowledge. And so when what I bring is respected, I can be a little bit more satisfied in the work. You probably can keep me a little bit longer because I feel valued in the space. Adaptability allows for updates to processes to improve productivity. And then it also motivates employees to see their potential. We all want to see potential. We all want to grow. I've rarely met any employee that's like, I'm staying right here forever and a day. Now I want to move on. I don't want to do nothing different. I haven't seen it. And so with transformational leadership, what you're doing is you're helping to motivate an employee to see what they bring, right? Because it's a mutual respect in the space. You're allowing people to be creative. And in turn, like I said, it boosts the satisfaction and morale, which then as the individual, if I haven't yet reached my level of understanding my potential, you've created the space to do that. Some of the challenges that can happen with transformational is there are individual learning curves, and there can be burnout from pushing too hard. So you see, like, I see your potential. I see you can do it. Let's go. Let's get it. But if I'm not ready for that, it can be a burnout from pushing somebody too hard, because if they're not ready, but yet you're pushing, you're going to tire yourself out. So as a leader, we have to look at what's the individual. Who's the individual, where they are, and how you help that person get there. All right. So the next one is going to be bureaucratic. Okay, so some of the characteristics of bureaucratic, they are detail-oriented and task-focused. Values rules and structures, has a great work ethic, strong will, their commitment to organization, self-discipline, centralized decision-making, and a clear chain of command. Let me tell you, this was me when I first got into the work. I'll be honest. I didn't know nothing about it. Okay, I came from doing casework, but I worked with a disaster population, right? So, I mean, I'm working with people who, experience a little bit of crisis, but not this type of crisis. So it was like I had to get focused. And so I still today, Melissa will probably tell you I'm very detail oriented, probably to default. But however, that is where I was. I was very detailed. I'm like, where's the structure? We following the chain of command because I brought some baggage to the table because I didn't know really what I was doing. I created an environment for the team. And that environment for the team, in some sense, it lended to people being able to see who I was, but it also lended to people being like, I don't know about her. Like, it's too structured. It's too black and white. It's too, this got to be this way. And so it didn't produce in the beginning for me what I was looking for to build rapport with my team. But again, that's us talking about how you may transition through different leadership styles. And so why this particular position or leadership style may work, it works for businesses, right? Successful in current processes. So I was successful in creating processes. I was successful for getting the team on the right foot. I was successful in a lot of different ways for the business, right? But if we get back to what we said about leadership, it's a balance. So I can't just be on one end for the business and I'm not for the team and I'm not for the staff. It also can lower risk of favoritism, but it does that because I'm right here. It's the bottom line. It's the black and white of it. It creates a workplace with central duties, job security, and predictability. One of the challenges, which I just talked about, some of the challenges I experienced in the bureaucratic leadership style, but also challenges, it provides a limited autonomy. I don't know about you guys on the call, but I love autonomy. Like I can live in that space. I love it. Like, let me be me. Like, that's how I grow. That's how I challenge myself. That's how I challenge my team. But when you come in with this particular type of leadership style, you're not allowing that for anybody. So that potential that you're looking to see for people, you're not going to see it. Why? Because you're so focused on the detail. You're so focused on the centralized decision. You're so focused on what's going to benefit the business versus what's going to benefit the others. And so as leaders, I always try to challenge, is that where you are? Are you looking for more of the business? And sometimes as leaders, we got to get there because we know we got to get some stuff done, but you can't live there. You cannot live in a bureaucratic leadership style. You just can't. It doesn't provide that extra space for people to grow. It can also shut down innovation. It's not the style for companies that have ambitious goals and quick growth. We know when working in this field, we got some ambitious goals, right? We are looking for it. We got big goals we're trying to hit. So again, this doesn't always work. It can work in a moment in time, but it's not the lasting leadership style that is comfortable and productive for those who you're trying to inspire and grow. All right, the next one is Pacesetter. Now this one is, a lot of people haven't really heard of this one pretty much. If you have, amazing. When I've kind of talked about it, people are like, I've never heard of that one. So the Pacesetter characteristics is it sets a high bar. It focuses on goals, slow to praise, will jump in to hit goals. It's highly competent, values performance over soft skills, leads by examples, and prefers speed and efficiency. So why does this particular leadership style work? So it sets ambitious goals with clear and focused efforts. Employees know exactly what's expected of them. This particular leadership style, you're clear. You're clear of what's expected, right? Leaders may work alongside employees to push. So that person that doesn't mind, getting the shelter to help, that person that doesn't mind being on call and getting there to the hospital to help respond, that person who doesn't mind taking on assessments, who will pick up the broom and sweep them up like everybody else, that person jumps in and works alongside the staff. They may work, so their teams thrive under this leader. So they're thriving because you're leading by example. You aren't just telling. You aren't just saying what's the bottom line. You aren't just putting the rules and making it black and white. You are showing. You are doing, right? And so I'm going to thrive if I know I got a leader who got my back, who doesn't mind doing the same things that I'm doing, who doesn't think that they're above me and just telling me what to do and they're sitting back and watching. It matters, guys. It matters. And so as you're aspiring to be a leader, what are you showing up in the workplace? Are you showing up as that team player who's jumping in and helping? Are you showing up as that team player who doesn't mind taking the leadership role in the moment, but also who doesn't mind taking a back seat when it's needed? So they make meeting goals urgent and exciting. You know, those meetings where we're just meeting to meet, that's not what the pace setter talking about. The pace setter is setting goals. When we meet, it's exciting because everybody's walking away with what? What's expected of them. If you're just one of those leaders, like, we're just here, this is what we're here to do, we're here to serve survivors. How are we doing it? How are we getting there? Right? Everybody can't serve in that role. And if you're going to be the leader in that space versus a title or not, what's the goal? What we looking at? Where are we going with this thing? Right? So some of the challenges in pace setter, it can create a high stress work environment. If goals are too ambitious to the point of unrealistic, this can overwhelm and demotivate teams. So that person that's like, let me see, I done switched between quite a few of them. I'll be having big goals. Like, my mind is like racing, like, these are all the things that we can do. However, it doesn't mean that the team is there just yet. And so if your goal is too high, your team can lose sight of it, or your team doesn't even have sight of it because they aren't there. So you may have to put that in your back pocket for a little bit, right? Like, save it. We're not telling you to throw it away, but you may have to save it because your team isn't ready yet. Because if you're forcing your team into a space that they're not ready for, it's going to become overwhelming. I guarantee you're going to lose people because this is just too much. This is not what I got in this work to do, right? Because we can come in again with our own baggage, our own things that we want to see happen, but it's not for the common good and common goal of the entire team. Can create disengagement and lead to burnout. Like, I don't even want to do this no more. I'm gone. Bye. I'm here from 8 to 5, and that's about it. Give me what I'm supposed to do. This person that just asked for way too much. It can be that. And when your employees are saying that, and when you're seeing that, we can't always look at the employee. Sometimes we got to look at ourselves. Like, what am I creating? What space am I making? What challenges am I presenting in the workspace? It can limit creativity, and it can limit diversity of thought. Our next one is transactional. So some of the characteristics of transactional is they value corporate structure. They micromanage, don't question authority, practical and realistic, values hitting goals, focused on maintaining status quo. They're reactionary, based on reward and punishment to direct behavior. Now, I know all those characteristics probably like, why this working? This shouldn't work. But there are some things that makes it work. So it recognizes and rewards commitment, focused on results and existing structures. It offers clarity and structure of expectations. It increased sense of safety among staff because expectations are understood. So while this particular leadership style may micromanage, they're practical and realistic, they value hitting the goal, everybody knows where they stand in it. They know where they stand. However, the challenges about it is it focuses more on reward system than building relationships and coaching staff. And from the chat, a lot of people said about coaching, mentoring, open door policy, like leading, being an example. And so to do that, I can't just focus on the reward, because those who I may be coaching, those who I may be helping to grow to a leadership in their leadership potential, they may not always be the person that hits the highest target, right? They may not be able to see as many clients. Their documentation may be a little bit delayed, but that means that I need to coach them in the space. It doesn't mean that I need to leave them by the wayside or forget about them. It means there comes my coaching piece. There comes my mentoring piece. And so in this particular leadership style, they're focusing on the reward. Like, what we going to get out of this? Like, if you do this, this is what you get. If you do this, then we get a raise. Well, we already know in this work, if I show up, I need a raise. It's just that hard of work, right? So it can't be just always that something's great or good that we're giving. If someone's showing up and trying, which we have so many staff, so many employees, so many coworkers who just show up and try. And at our agency, we created a board of a take what you need board. And so we choose to give each other around the workplace just different motivating things. So we may give them like a you got this, or keep going, or I'm proud of you. So it's just a moment in time to recognize that even if you're not the highlighted employee who made it to the newsletter, you're still doing a great job. You're still doing amazing. You're showing up. You're helping somebody get to safety. You're doing all the things that sometimes, if we get honest, some people in the world, they may wish that they can do the things that we do. And when we're here in the moment as leaders of position, title, and even just in the agency of who we are, we have to recognize that about each other. This one can lead to low creativity and also can lead to fear of punishment. So I don't want anybody to work in a fearful environment, because one, I guarantee you they're not connecting clients to resources as they should. They aren't as proactive in their work. And also there's no rapport within the team or even with you as the leader. And then the last one is participative. Characteristics include value group discussion. They provide team with all information when making decisions. It promotes an environment where everyone shares ideas. It's inclusive, supportive, empowering, and empathetic, right? So it's including everybody. Like, come on in, everybody. Let's be leaders. Let's talk this thing through. It's no particular hierarchy in participative. Like, you have the person who's in charge, but it's really like they're just helped to kind of facilitate with the group or with the team, but it's a group effort in things. Why this works is this style resembles how a board would make decisions. It encourages everyone to participate in all steps of the processes. Staff know they will be heard, and it increases employee engagement because I'm able to participate. Challenges include reaching a consensus can take time, resources, and communication. So if I'm taking advice or thoughts from everybody, and let's say you got a team of 10, that can take a minute, right? Then the other one is it could impact decision making due to lack of expertise among some people involved.
Well,
What
Keisha,
it means is you may be trying to include everybody in this. So it could possibly impact how it doesn't have as much like I said, awareness or information per se. However, this is one of the most familiar that people, especially something to bring to the table, especially survivors who are in this work. And we don't want to forget the value that they bring into the space. So while they may not be leaders of title, could possibly work. All right. So cultivation of leadership traits. So how do you get here? So one of those things. All right. So cultivation of leadership traits. So how do you identify what your leadership trait is? So first you want to do a self-assess. We can self-assess ourselves, which is important. I'm with your peers. Check in with others who you share and may not share in leadership space. For those who are thriving to be potential leaders, ask your coworkers, ask your friends, ask your family members. If you're in leadership spaces and other things outside of work, ask them their opinion, because you can try to jump into the leadership pool too soon, too fast, and you're not ready because you your own self-assessment. But it's important that we pull on or ask those thoughts and advice from those who may be around us, who are going to see us in a different light than we may see ourselves. Goal setting, skill development, work on developing your skill. Find ways in your organization that you can do leadership projects We have things that we do around Awareness Month at our agency. And so it's our opportunity to allow staff to take on leadership moments so they can develop their leadership skills, so they can work alongside people who are already established leaders in the workplace. And leaders, are you creating opportunities in the workplace for skill development? You want to lead by example. So even if you don't have the title of leadership, right? If you don't have the title of deputy director or program manager, in that you do, are you leading? Before I was promoted to a deputy director, before I was promoted to a program director, anything. So you want to look at that. Do you have a network of support? As a leader, you're going to need it. I want to get close to the camera to say it. You are going to need support. So make sure that you have that support, those accountability partners, people who believe in what you're doing, but who are also going to support you even in your shortcomings, even when you make your mistakes. So have your support. No leader can lead alone, not just with the team, but I'm talking about support as well. So pillars of courage. So pillars of courage, courageous. I'm sorry, leadership. Vulnerability. It's important. Like I try to tell my I tell people all the time, it's my biggest thing. I'm not above correction. Yes, the position level that I have at the agency, yes, I'm in the second in charge at the agency. However, the human piece of Waukesha, and above you telling me that I stepped on your toes, that I hurt your feelings, vulnerable as a leader. And even before you get into the position of leadership, people have to see your leadership. They got to be able to trust you in some other roles too. Even though the agency has values, even though my own personal value, right? Because people are looking at you because you're the example. So we can't live in a hole or live in a negative place. How do I come back from it? Next is empathy. Is it? We are so sorry about the technical difficulties, guys.
Much better, Waukesha, much better.
The next one is empathy. You want to have empathy for your staff and those who are around you, because it's going to take that in you being the example and you seeing people's potential. You have to have empathy for what they may not come into the space with. Also, if they come into the space with it, but it's just not working in that realm, but having empathy because you as the leader, you're going to want it too. You're going to need it. And so what we need and what we want, we have to be able and willing to extend that to others in the work with us. So why should you become a leader? I love it. It creates a change at the table. It's enhancement of personal growth and development for you, but also those who are coming behind you, those who you're responsible for pulling up. Somebody has to be the leader in the room, right? Somebody has to be. Opportunities to make a positive impact on individuals and organizations. I tell people this all the time. I started off as a caseworker in our shelter, and being able to see what was needed in that space, and now sitting at the table where I can create conversations, I can ask for money to support those things, both for staff and clients, is amazing for me. I love it. I enjoy it. And it, like it says here, it creates the opportunities. Ability to inspire and empower others. And it provides the chance to take on challenges and drive change. As a leader, you get to sit at the table and say, hey, this isn't working. Here's why. And I have some ideas on why it can change. Even if you don't have the position in the space, when you go back and you sit at your desk and you're not necessarily a leader, how do you challenge your coworkers to be different? How do you drive change among the team so that everybody can be a benefit of the betterment, so that everybody can be a part of the change, so that everybody can see the positive impact? Remember, it's not just title. It's not about position. It's what you have internally, what you're willing to be vulnerable and open yourself up to.
Okay, so whenever we're talking about leadership and whenever we're talking about this movement, it's important that we're finding our why. And I love this quote from Simon Sinek, the same person that we saw the video from earlier. Before we can stand out, we must first get clear on what we stand for. So, in his book, Find Your Why, a practical guide for discovering purpose for you and your team, the way that he explains to do this, which originally I was going to have us go into breakout rooms, but because of the tech issues, I feel like I'm just going to lose everybody if we try doing that. So, if somebody wants to come forward and do this, then I definitely invite you to come off mute. I'll give an example. So basically what he says is to tell a couple stories, and through those stories, you'll find maybe 2 or 3 themes, common themes. And then you take those and create your why statement. So I'll just kind of give you an example of some of mine. And these are 3 very brief stories. One started whenever I was 12. Family went to Disney World and we were walking around, and all of a sudden this group of boys started kind of trying to flirt with me. I was freaking out. I was not okay with this. My mom thought it was adorable because, I was like 12 and these boys, I believe they were from Brazil, and they were very persistent, and I was getting increasingly uncomfortable. But parents, like back whenever I was that age, parents just thought that this was cute. It was flirting. Give them a chance. I didn't want to give a chance. That was really creepy for me. Second story, I'm 15 years old. I'm at the grocery store, and this really creepy looking guy asked me if I wanted to become a model. And I'm just like, not so much. And I went looking for my mother. I didn't realize until later on that may have been a trafficker. And if he did not look like a Jeffrey Dahmer wannabe, I may have actually gone through with that because at that point I did want to be a model. But my intuition told me that this was not right, and the guy just did not. He did not vibe like very well. And lastly, one of the things that we talk about in our monthly orientation crisis intervention training is why we came to Bay Area Turning Point. And my answer always is I didn't choose Bay Area Turning Point. I wanted to be a lawyer. I did not want to go into nonprofit world. But as I started there, I started in our childcare as a childcare provider. And I went to our compliance department. I went to be a victim advocate. And then I got into the prevention world. And once I got into the prevention world, I realized that all the things I wanted to do growing up, policy change, making sure laws are fair and just, that's exactly what I'm doing in this role. And so I actually landed exactly where I am supposed to be. So what I found was common in these is that all of these experiences played somewhat to sexual violence. They all played towards, the one with the grocery store, human trafficking. And so what I did was I kind of pulled these themes from here, right? So why I'm here is to create a culture in which glorifying risk factors, glorifying rape culture is no longer the norm. We're promoting protective factors on all levels becomes the norm. So on the individual level, the relationship level, the community level, and the societal level. So that is my why. I don't want to see this happen to anybody else. And even though all the adults thought it was adorable that this boy was hitting on me, that was not normal, and that was not consensual for me, and I was clearly not interested, yet he was very persistent. And so even though that innocent interaction, that still plays to rape culture. So that's my why. I don't want this to be the norm anymore. So I encourage all of you to kind of either, whether you journal this or you get together with somebody at the office or you try this at your office, in the workplace, try to tell a couple of stories and see if you can find a common theme, and really look at your values too, and try to connect all of those to create a why statement. Before we move on, I do want to see if anybody has any questions. I know we've covered a lot of material so far. I'm going to give just a minute. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And if anybody does have questions, if you can just put them in the chat, and then Peggy will stop me so we can answer those. So we're going to transition into trauma and growth. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, that a lot of us do have trauma. So what I want you to start thinking about, just kind of reflect for a moment. Pretty much everybody. I don't know a single person that has not at some point in time experienced a traumatic event. So this is a distressing or a disturbing event that really has an effect on our emotional, our mental, our psychological, our physical, our social, and our spiritual well-being. Like, you feel this on all levels. So I want you to think about that traumatic experience, how you overcame that, and what skills do you think you developed from it? Now, I'm not going to ask anybody to reveal what their trauma is unless they want to, but I would like for y'all to put in the chat, once you think about this, what skills do you think you developed from that trauma? And we'll take just a second to do that. Well, y'all are thinking I'm going to move on, but I want y'all to think about those, and then we'll come back and look at those.
What are some examples?
Some examples. So, let's see. Okay, I mean, I'll just use my own experience because I know my experience. I was sexually assaulted as a child, as a teenager. Um, I I feel like it took therapy to like really overcome it. But some of the skills that I developed is to learn how to stand up for myself, to learn how to advocate for myself, to not remain quiet, to come forward about things. Um, let's see. All right, here we go. Emotional regulation skills. Yes, hypervigilance leads to an ability to read people, which can be helpful. Please keep that in mind, because the next little discussion piece that's going to come into play. Understanding of human behavior and culture. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we all can gain these skills from the trauma that we've experienced. I have learned the art of saying no. It seems like a very simple thing, but it's really not. It's really not, especially if you are a people pleaser. Saying no is one of the hardest things. And I am actually very proud that I have learned that skill. To be empathetic. Yes, you start understanding where people are coming from. Even though you don't know their experience directly, because we're all our own unique individuals, you can at least try to put yourself in that person's shoes to try to understand where they've come from. So how can trauma affect our growth? And this can be, a lot of times we are focusing on like the PTSD aspect of things, but there are some negative things that come from trauma and affecting how you grow as a person. You start to lose trust in yourself and others. You can feel defeated by just the smallest stressors. I will never forget this, and Waukesha, I don't think you will either. Probably about a year and a half ago at the agency, we had this real nasty storm coming through, and it started flooding, and I just went into full on panic mode. I grabbed all my stuff. I'm running in circles, trying to get everybody to get out so I can leave. And everybody else is just kind of just fiddling around. I'm just like, oh my God. And I was just a hot mess. I went into full on panic mode. Now I've learned how to not do that anymore, but I mean, it could have been, I mean, it's a big thing, but honestly, I've never really experienced getting stuck in floodwaters, but I remember seeing people that did. Whenever Harvey came through, if anybody's from the Houston area, you know how bad that was. So just small little things or big things, I mean, they would all cause me to go into panic mode. Fear of trying and failing. Whenever I applied for higher positions in our agency, at first I didn't think I was qualified for those. And it took me a minute. It took me a minute to actually be like, okay, maybe I can do this position. We don't, sometimes whenever we don't process the trauma, we start feeling like we don't deserve good things. We don't deserve to grow. We don't deserve to move forward. You have a heightened stress response. You experience a high degree of imposter syndrome. And I haven't told you this, but whenever I first moved into this director role, I had a little bit of that imposter syndrome. I'm like, am I really supposed to be here? And as I've grown into this role, I'm realizing, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm very happy here. But whenever I first got there, I was like, am I really supposed to be here? And that can cause a fear of being successful. Everybody has this dream of being successful, but it's like, what does that look like? And what are going to be the consequences of that success? Especially if you look at politicians, you look at people that, and I'm looking at the ones that are trying to do good, but somebody's always going to have something bad to say. Somebody's always going to try to cut them down. Celebrities, people that are very high profile in general, somebody's always going to have something negative to say. And they're always going to not like your success and try to make you fear your own as well. So post-traumatic growth is what we really want to focus on. Because again, we think trauma, we're thinking that PTSD, that negative stuff. But post-traumatic growth is where you experience positive psychological change in all aspects of your life, that emotional, that mental, that physical, that spiritual level as a result of that trauma. And what that can feel like is increased personal strength. You start feeling more worthy. You increase your self-worth. You discover strengths and abilities you never knew you had. You start seeing a shift in your priorities and your values. You start seeing new possibilities open up for you, and you start to develop resilience. If you asked me 10 years ago, would I be on the Office of the Governor's Sexual Assault Survivor Task Force making policy recommendations? I would have told you absolutely not. But here I am. And I just made one for not this session because it's too late now, but the next session, which is going to be taken into consideration. So the trauma can really have some positive things that go with it. And some of those positives, you start to really understand your own meaning and your own purpose. Sometimes it helps you even find meaning and purpose in life that you may not have known was there. It does help you in your recovery because now you can create this narrative where you've overcome adversity. Now nobody can touch you, right? It creates some positive emotions. It can be a buffer against negative effects. It really fosters this culture of problem solving and action, right? Social support, senses of connectedness. If anybody's familiar with prevention, connectedness is one of the prime protective factors that we try to promote because it does help. It helps with stress. It helps with your mental well-being, just being connected to others. Acts of kindness, those make people feel good. And whenever you feel good, you grow. You move forward. So acts of kindness towards people. And then this internal locus of control. You have the ownership of your fate versus seeing yourself as a victim. I saw myself as a victim for the longest time. And even in the smallest things, I would try to play victim. And there's a lot of people that do that because they haven't really come to gain that control back over their lives. But once you gain that control back over your life, you control the outcomes of what happens. So this is where I told you to remember that about hypervigilance. So I want y'all to talk about what your trauma superpowers are, and we can just put these in the chat. You can come off mute. But basically, this is taking those things that we've developed. It could be just part of our personality. It could be because of trauma, but those things that may be perceived as negative or quirks or things that people may not like about us. And how can we turn that into a positive? And that hypervigilance was actually one of the examples that I had, because you're always alert and you're always prepared. So try to think of some things that trauma has kind of created within you, within your personality, and how you can turn that into a positive. I know, like, whenever I think of the resilience and the strength of somebody, I think of Captain America, like unlimited strength. Like, I made it through this very, very, very hard thing, and literally nobody can touch me now. Like, nobody can hurt me now. So I want y'all to take a minute and try to think about what are some trauma superpowers? Setting boundaries and not being in fear. Yes, I love that one. What else? What else y'all got? Making sure people are heard. I like that one. Go to deep or dark spaces with others. Oh my God, you just brought like Star Wars vibes with that one. They're always looking for the balance between the light and the dark. You have to be able to feel the dark in order to feel the light. Yeah, sorry. Just went a little nerdy on y'all. Anything else? Yeah, she knows what I'm talking about. Total Star Wars vibes. One of the things that I think about is X-ray vision. And what I mean by that is you can see right through somebody. You can see if they're bluffing. You can see if they're lying. You can see if they're genuine, but you can see right through somebody. That's one that I like. Let's see, deep resilience, a strong sense of understanding and compassion, overcoming adversity, which allows you to connect with people on a meaningful level. Yeah, yeah. You want to find meaning in everything that we're doing, right? Anybody else? Before I talk about the last one. Okay, my experience fuels my passion, giving me the strength to lead. Yes. Shadow and decisiveness, light, being open to new ideas, thoughts, and greater adaptability. I love that. Absolutely. Yes. And then somebody may have already said it, but the other one that I was thinking about is intuition. And what I think about with that is being able to feel things. And so that also kind of leads to building that sense of empathy. Empathy is incredibly important in our line of work. We have to be able to, whether we've been through it or not, we've got to be able to try to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes to understand where they're coming from. If you work with sexual assault survivors, you're dealing with people that have been through crisis, whether they've been through it in the past and have overcome it, or they're currently in it. And if you're working with people in crisis, you have to try to, and this is where that trauma integration kind of comes in, because you know what it feels like to be in crisis. And so for a moment, you kind of have to get into your head and remember where your mind was whenever you were in crisis, to try to understand the behavior of the person that you're working with and to try to help them the best that you can. So, and I love this quote, Brene Brown, empathy is the strongest antidote to shame. So how can our trauma make us better leaders? And that's going to be the next section of what we talk about. So let's look at what some of the effects are of trauma on leadership. So kind of like trauma has effects on our growth, it also has an effect on our leadership skills. We can have difficulties with trusting people. We can have difficulties with emotional regulation, and somebody put that as their superpower, and I love that, because I feel like emotional regulation, regardless, is just a superpower in itself. Regardless of what kind of trauma you may or may not have been through, because that's something that a lot of times we're not taught. If it's not taught at home, unless you have a specialized program in your school, which I think they're trying to bring more of those in now, we don't learn how to manage our emotions. We learned how, in my school, at least, in my school district, we learned how to take a test. That was about it. We didn't learn how to manage our emotions, though. We have difficulties with sense of security. We don't always feel safe. We don't always have the best decision-making skills. Sometimes that can look like we have a hard time making decisions, or we don't make the best decisions, and we can make very risky decisions. And then there's a resistance to change. So I said at the very beginning, in this line of work, working in the anti-sexual violence movement, there is constant change. It changes from day to day to day to day. And I mean, that can be grant changes, that can be program changes, that can be staff changes. But if we can't deal with change, then that's going to impair our leadership. So I pulled this quote from an article that I was reading, talking about overachieving, and I actually changed the term. Originally, they had high achieving. I personally associate high achievement with positive. Overachieving, though, kind of feels like it fits more here. So the quote is, traumatic experience can shake individuals to their core, leading them to reevaluate their priorities and strive for personal growth and achievement to transcend their trauma. Overachieving can lead individuals feeling a sense of two individuals feeling a sense of control, and can also be a way of avoiding negative emotions. Basically, what this is saying is we will sometimes become overachievers, and I have done this myself. I can definitely attest to this. We try to become overachievers in order to gain control back over our lives, to try to create meaning and to try to create purpose, to try to feel worthy. So instead of just doing that bare minimum, we try to go way above and beyond. I have done that to the point of burnout, and it's not fun, and it's hard to come down from that. But a lot of times we try to use overachievement and really just throwing ourselves into our work to try to basically push down the trauma, to try to overshadow the trauma, whenever really what we could be doing is integrating that trauma, which is what we've been talking about. So some signs of this overachievement could be perfectionism. Perfectionism can be very detrimental because nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. And even if you do get it to the point of perfection, something's probably going to change the moment you get it there. So don't try to be perfect. Overwhelming drive for success. Sometimes people base their worthiness on their level of success. Fear of failure. We were talking about fear of success earlier, but we also have this fear of failure. Relentless self-criticism. We are our own worst critics. I know y'all have heard that before, but it is absolutely true. We really judge ourselves. We have to be able to give ourselves some self-compassion. Hyper responsibility, people pleasing. That's what I was talking about earlier, not ever saying no. Anytime anybody asks me to do something, it's always, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But then you start burning out. Avoidance of vulnerability. That's what we talked about earlier. That's one of the pillars of courageous leadership. You have to be able to be vulnerable in order to be an effective leader. But sometimes if you really haven't processed trauma and you really are trying to achieve, you don't want people to see your vulnerabilities, because that can be perceived as weaknesses, which who wants to show weaknesses? But that's really not the same thing. It really is showing courage by showing vulnerability. Chronic stress and burnout, difficulty relaxing, and high sensitivity. So unprocessed trauma and leadership. So like I was saying, if we have not processed trauma that we've been through, if we have not tried to heal from our trauma, then that can turn us into very ineffective leaders. And these are some ineffective leadership traits. There's team division, where people are just completely divided to the point of working against each other. And in that sense, nothing's getting done. There's no sense of trust. There's also no communication. We can't achieve anything if we're not communicating with each other, especially as a team. And we know we cannot do this by ourselves. Fear of change. We've talked about that a lot. A lot of people have a hard time with change, and that's okay. But can you handle it? Can you adapt to that change? And then micromanagement. if you're constantly looking over the shoulders of your team members, that can show a lack of trust in your team. And that can make people feel like they're not competent enough to complete their job. But if we haven't processed trauma and if we haven't learned how to cultivate those leadership skills, then we may feel like we do have to look over somebody's shoulder the whole time. Can y'all think of any other ineffective leadership traits before we move on? Okay. Yeah. Due to time, we're just gonna have y'all drop those in the chat if you can think of others.
All right. So with all of that, so we know that we come to the table with trauma, with certain things that we may not have worked through. There is good news behind that, right? So even though I may have trauma, even though I may come to the table with some of those things, they can be managed, right? Next slide for me, Melissa. So problematic, Lord, I couldn't get that word. Problematic behaviors are manageable. They are manageable. Our trauma is manageable. And remember, Melissa said it can be any type of trauma that you come to the table with. So it doesn't have to be domestic violence. It doesn't have to be sexual assault. Sometimes it's just life experiences that gives us traumatic experiences that as leaders, co-workers, we're showing up with. So how do you manage that in the space for growth for everybody and a cohesive team? You want to cultivate self-compassion. You wanted compassion at once point in time, right? You wanted somebody to show you compassion and understanding. We have to be willing to show it to others, right? Also, you want to set realistic standards. Be realistic in what you're looking for from people, as well as what you're putting out to people. You got to be careful of that overachievement piece that Melissa was talking about. Is it realistic, right? Or is that you? Is that you that's wanting 100%? Or is it really realistic that we can get to 100? So you got to really look at, is it me, right? Is it for the common good of the group? You want to practice mindfulness. You want to embrace self-care. Take care of yourself, guys. It's hard to do in leadership. It's hard to do just in this work. But create that boundary for yourself. Establish them. Boundaries are important. When Melissa says she got to saying the no, she's good at it now. She's worked on it. She's good at it now. Establish those boundaries. What's going to protect your peace and your happiness and your ability to continue to fight and move forward in this work? You want to seek support. You can seek support within the workplace. Seek support outside the workplace. Doing this work, I keep my counselor, on speed dial if I need to. Because in trying to help people work through their experiences, sometimes it makes us relive ours, right? Or it takes us back to a place. So you got to be mindful of that. You have to be aware of that and know where your support lies so that you can check in when you need to, so you can show back up into the place. You want to practice emotional regulation. We've touched on that quite a bit. It's important. And you want to prioritize rest and relaxation. At Bay Area Turning Point, we do what we call Wellness Wednesdays, or we have certain times throughout the year where we just practice wellness. And so we do things that you can do in your office. We do things where we're like, everybody log off. We're just going to have a minute to ourselves. We try to do things where we're watching movies together, but it's just an opportunity to try to disengage for just a second so we can recenter ourselves and come back to be the best advocates that we can be. You can't be the best advocate if you're depleted. You just can't. You cannot do that. And so to offer space of greatness and help for survivors, we got to be willing to help ourselves. All right. Next slide for me, Melissa. So, managing trauma effects and problematic behaviors leads to post-traumatic growth and trauma regulation. And so the very basic definitions of that: post-traumatic growth is psychological theory that describes how people can experience positive changes after struggling with difficult life circumstances. Okay. And then trauma integration is the complex process that involves acknowledging past experiences while remaining present and living to one's own full potential. All right. So how does that happen? So with yourself, you want to increase self-awareness. You got to know yourself. You can't think that you're perfect. You can't think that you aren't coming with something, because the things that we do, it's going to bring up something for us. So you got to be aware of that. You want to enhance empathy and emotional intelligence. Embrace your vulnerability and building trust. You got to be vulnerable. I know we've been hurt. We've had things that, we didn't desire or whatever, right? But you have to be aware and build trust among your team. If you can't trust your team and those you're choosing to work alongside, we're not helping. We're not helping. We're causing more trauma if we think about it, when we don't deal with our own. As an organization, it's improved well-being, organizational and employee well-being. It's increased employee loyalty and productivity. When we challenge ourselves and look at our own selves and the problems that we bring, and we work on those and fix those, and aware about those things, it increases productivity and loyalty among the team, because I'm not showing up with that extra weight. I'm not putting that extra weight on everybody else. And we got to be careful about the weight that we give to other people. It's not their weight to carry. That's ours, and we got to deal with that, right? It also creates an enhanced organizational culture. If your organizational culture is off, you may want to do some check-ins. You got to do some check-ins, because you can't keep limping along. So what type of leader are you? As we wrap up our presentation, my hopes is that we started a little late, and I'm sorry at the end. We've kind of had a few technical difficulties with the PowerPoint. If you do want that, you can drop it in the chat, or Melissa and I's contact information. You can send us an email. We send it to you. But what we hope is that from this training, what type of leader are you, right? That you are able to go back and identify your why. We talked about some of those things. Why are you in the work? That will help you identify what type of leader you're going to be. If you're just in it so that your name can be on display, then that's going to show you what type of leader you are, right? If you in it just because, hey, I want to get all the grant funds, that's going to show you what type of leader you are. But what is your why? Are you here to help? Are you here to grow? Are you to help people see their potential? What do you want to accomplish, and how do you want to accomplish it? That's how you can determine your leadership style. You want to think back to the trauma we had and to discuss earlier. What strengths did you develop from that trauma? Take that into your ability to be a leader, right? So what, from the trauma you experience, what do you not want somebody else to experience? What do you want to be different from somebody else? That helps garner your why. That helps you identify what type of leader you're going to be. How has that shaped your style? How can that shape your style? Because remember, it's ever changing. I've been many different type of leaders, right? Because I've been in many different type of spaces. And so what type of leader do you want to be by integrating your trauma into your style? So some of the things that we said that changes the trajectory or changes the way trauma can be viewed in a negative way, but you're bringing a positive. How does your trauma increase or create the vulnerability, adaptability, and welcoming space for those who you have to lead, but also who you're in a space of providing a leadership space to? And so those are the, I'm sorry, you guys probably can't even see them. It's just kind of blurry. Okay, thank you so much, Peggy. So the TASA survey is in the chat. We also had, okay, it's not clear. We also have our agency survey, if you guys would graciously participate in that as well. We appreciate your time here today. Hopefully, I always tell people, yes, sometimes a leadership training is just a reminder of it. You probably have heard this information in school or in the workplace, but sometimes we got to be reminded, or sometimes we got to kind of pull ourselves back, because we can get going so much as leaders that we don't stop and pause to look at where we are, what we need to maybe change, and what needs to evolve in the space. So Melissa and I are grateful and appreciative that you chose to join us today for this webinar and this training. We hope that this conference has been inviting for you guys, awareness, and increased your knowledge of how to continue to assist survivors in this work, but even more so, how do you work on becoming a better leader? Remember, it's not about position and it's not about title, but it's about you as an individual and your show up game in this movement. Our contact information is on the slide, but you cannot see it. However, if you look, we are with Bay Area Turning Point. If you look us up, you can find our agency on social media. Reach out to the agency and they'll definitely get you connected to us. I think Melissa's trying to drop it into the chat. And I think that's about it. If you had any questions, I know we are about 5 minutes after time, but we will take questions. We'll stay a few minutes for those who are able to, if you had any questions.
So I just want to thank you, Makisha, and thank you, Melissa, for being here with us. I only saw one question in the chat, and that is, if you have time, would you share any book recommendations for developing
Melissa
leadership?
dropped our email addresses in the chat. I think you're on mute, Peggy. I don't know if you were talking to us.
Oh, yes, sorry. Just wanted to thank you so much for being here. There was one question.
Oh,
If
because
you,
my volume is down now.
okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, okay. I just wanted to thank both of you for being here with us today and sharing this information. We did have one question. If you could share any book recommendations for developing leadership style and qualities, what would that be?
So, one second. Okay, so for the cultivation of leadership, I saw that question. I actually found that in an article online. If you can drop me your email in the chat, I have all of the references on the slides, and I can definitely send all that.
And Melissa, there's one other question. Do you see it in the chat?
Yes, I'm reading it.
Respond. And I'm actually going to stop recording now.
Okay.
And just be great at what I do. It's nothing wrong, Melissa, with being great at what you do, but I want to refer back to the support piece. We don't have to have a relationship like we